thanks to Starter, the Startup Talks folks who have behind the scenes made this happen, Quan and others as well. And thank you all for coming out. Every one of these we kind of start out with, it's summertime, and it's always great to see the folks who are here. And of course, we're live streaming, and we're thrilled to have that part as well. And of course, as was mentioned, these are also put back online. They can be seen later. I have to tell you, today's an exciting day for me. As a serial entrepreneur, when I saw Chris's bio, I was like, my gosh, this guy's all over the map. He's doing all these things. I love it because, that some people kind of categorize my life that way as well when they see the things I do day in and day out. I actually just got back from Georgia on a project up there. We're working with a very, very large multinational company, putting in some IT space on 44,000 square feet. It's kind of cool, next to an Air Force base. It's kind of things I like to do and learn about small and startup companies as well. But Gainesville, and what I really like to highlight at the very beginning, Gainesville is just a wonderful hub and place to not only grow your family and grow up here. I grew up here, to root yourself here, but also your company. And companies are built around people. And Gainesville's got a phenomenal quality of life, and I think that's always neat to celebrate. And it's celebrated by the fact that there are great startups here, and there are great companies that are emerging out of Gainesville, and we like to highlight those. And Chris is certainly going to share with us many of his things that he's grown out of here as well. So Chris, actually, we talked for very, very brief, a few minutes beforehand. So Chris has been to one of these before. How many have you been to?
Just one.
Just one.
Just Colin, yeah.
Okay. So he kind of knows the little bit of what we're going to do. But for those who are new here today, what we're going to do is have a very casual conversation, kind of, where Chris grew up, kind of a little bit about his family, and then kind of the genesis of how things have started and evolved in terms of the companies that he's been a part of and supported and grown. After about 45 minutes of that or so, we're also going to have an open question series. So if you in the audience have anything to ask, just save those to the end, and we'll be happy to take those questions and be thrilled to answer them and make sure we get a well-rounded hour discussion in terms of this startup talk. So with that, I will start off. Chris, great having you here. Of course,
Thank you.
Today.
Thank you.
So share with me a little bit. I didn't find out. Where are you from?
Texas born, actually. That's a little known fact, Dallas. And Virginia raised,
Okay.
and high school in South Florida, Boca Raton, Delray Beach. So a little bit everywhere. But I call Gainesville home now. Yeah, for 12 years maybe. Yeah.
Did you go to college here?
I did. Yeah, that's what brought me here. Yeah.
College brought you here. You married? I see a ring.
I am. So 2 years this October.
Okay.
Been together for about 8 years. So she stuck with me through the hardest times. So yeah. She's and 2 dogs, no kids. Yeah.
Fantastic.
Yeah.
So I don't want to dive too deep.
Yeah, it's boring stuff.
Well, it's not that. It's just I know what you're doing lately, and we'll get to that in about half an hour from now. So part of Startup Talks really talks kind of about the genesis of a person, kind of the fire that's within yourself to do the things you do, right? So many people, want to be a part of a company in different ways, and so some of them come through ideas, and then they have this idea and it blossoms, and they're like, how do I take it to market? How do I monetize it, as I like to call it? And so I know you have some concepts out there. So you go through college, and you come out of college, and did you go to work for someone?
I did, actually. So that's part of the craziest part of this story, is that I never intended to be an entrepreneur. I never sought it out. I went to school, degree in finance. Literally my entire senior year, I had a job waiting for me till 2 weeks before graduation in 2008. We know what happened then. Got the call that job didn't exist. So while I was partying my whole senior year and like looking forward to the good life, and a job that I was really excited about, it just wasn't there. And so I ended up I was really into like personal finance, and I was reading Warren Buffett when I was like 14, and I thought that is what I would be doing, and so I went back down to South Florida, lived at home, and worked for a financial advisor, private wealth manager, and right away I realized this was actually my first like step towards entrepreneurship, was that I associated so much more with the person on the other side of the table. So I was sitting here with my mentor in private finance, and we were sitting across from these business owners, and they'd created these great things, and they were on top of the world. They were happy. They were in control of their destiny, and even during the worst of times, they always had this sense of purpose. And I aligned so much with that, and I wasn't feeling it at that time in my life. And so fortunately, I mean, I was only, 21, 22, and I didn't have much to my name. And so I kind of took that as a sign that I needed to do something more and something different, which is led me to the road where I'm at right now. But it's a long road.
Step out of that.
Yeah. So it was honestly, looking back, I would hate to be my parents, because I quit that job, and I quit it by telling them that I had something else lined up. I didn't. Sorry, Mom. And but I was so unhappy, and I was looking myself in the mirror every morning, and I was saying, "This is not you." And it was like, I can't imagine, because I know so many people go through that today. Is like they just try to fight their way through the day, and I didn't want to do that. And I felt like if there was any time in my life I was going to do it, it was when I was broke at 22 and had nothing. And so I literally just I just packed up my car, and I drove around. I visited some friends.
Now, where were you at this time?
I was in South Florida. Yeah. And I was working down in Fort Lauderdale, and I knew there was something more out there, and I had a great friends. I slept on some couches during that time. I vagabonded for a little bit. Fun and just crazy, irresponsible time. But I've always had this like desire, like this belief. I'm like a little bit of a believer in like fulfillment and like life satisfaction. And I knew at the end of the day that I would find it. It just wasn't where I currently was. And so fortunately, I did okay in the 7 to 8 months that I was working there. So I saved a little bit of money, and I landed myself in a small town in West Tennessee with my best friend. He was actually happened to be the best man at my wedding. Him and his dad were looking to start up a gym in Tennessee. And so I was like, oh, I love working out. I've done this. I became a personal trainer, and I was like, well, I can help you guys out. And they're like, yeah, for sure. And so we just we started it up and just hustled and built out the gym. And
So were you part owner?
Sweat equity.
Okay.
Yeah. Barely.
Okay.
I was just happy.
All in.
I was just happy to be doing something that I enjoyed, and that's what really brought me to, I guess, fitness or health.
Okay.
And what I realized was that I was as passionate about the business side as I was about the fitness.
Okay.
And so I enjoyed like training people and all that, but I was really addicted to especially the way that his dad really grew and ran his empire at the time. He made a lot of money in different industries. He was a serial entrepreneur as well. I still really look up to him, and he was my first, I guess, entrepreneurial advisor, if you will, or mentor. Right. And so I did that for a while, and I realized that I didn't want to be in West Tennessee. Sorry, no offense if anyone's from West Tennessee. Small town, their hometown, but I wasn't from there. One winter there, and I was like, I got to go back to Florida. So I drive back to Florida again with whatever I can fit in my car, and come back to Gainesville. To this day, I literally don't know why. I didn't want to go to South Florida. I was like, I don't want to go back there. That's where I'm from. I didn't know anyone in Orlando. Didn't know anyone in Tampa or like Jacksonville. This was literally my decision process for the rest of my life, by the way. And so I was like, oh, I know a lot of people in Gainesville. It was like a year and a half out of college or 2 years out of college. And so came on back. And then I realized when I got here, I was like, I have no idea what I'm doing. And so that's when I started what is now B3 Gym out of my car. For the first week and a half I was in Gainesville, I lived out of my car because I didn't really know what I was doing. I didn't have money for a deposit on an apartment. Fortunately, I negotiated my way onto a couch and then negotiated my way into free rent. And then worked a few other side jobs.
So,
yeah, I know. I'm just going.
No, I know. It's good. And I don't want to stop you, but there's a lot. There's a lot
Yeah.
of storyline here because you've done a lot, and so I'm already learning the fact that you're living by literally by bootstrap.
Yeah.
And making it happen. So. And we talked a little bit earlier, there's some value out of that. We've talked about funding some of the companies and so forth and the struggles that we all go through in terms of really making a company profitable and how to get there. But, so take me through, I have to stop you.
Yeah.
So you started, I want to know, who goes to a gym in a car? You say you started a gym in the back of your car.
Yeah, so obviously I couldn't even afford an apartment, so I couldn't afford a gym.
So personal training?
Yeah, so at the time, the same place I negotiated free rent, I negotiated to use their garage, 2-car garage as my new gym.
Okay.
And then I started running some group classes on a field. And I still knew people. This is the power of relationships. And so I talked to every single person I knew about it. And I think that people saw just my passion and probably my struggle at the time and just wanted to help. So I think my first classes, it was some of my friends from college and their girlfriends, and that was my first class. Right. Out on what was it? Norman
so
Field.
Ultimately open a facility.
Yes, yeah. Ultimately opened a facility about. It was about a year in. I decided that this could be a real business. It was still a hobby at that point. I was still not thinking of it the way that I do today.
Right.
And about a year in, I was like, I really think I could do this. And so I opened up the first facility. It was a shared warehouse space. And then about 2 years later, we moved again. And then 3 years later, we moved again to our current place. Okay. So, yeah.
And it's still going?
Oh, yeah, absolutely still going. Got a few members in the room.
Okay, awesome. Well, so let's transition a little bit further. So that's still ongoing.
Yeah.
So what was the next iteration of entrepreneurship?
Yeah, well, the first few years were just incredibly stubborn of myself, and I look back and I realize like how foolish I was, and so I've learned so much in the 8 years, but I got to this point to where I realized, and this was like my people realization, when I realized I couldn't do this myself anymore. I was literally doing everything. Right. I was to the point to where I was experimenting with sleep cycles to like, seriously, yeah. If anyone's done polyphasic sleep cycles, like I'm sorry. I was trying to get away with sleeping 6 20-minute naps in the day just to find more time. Right. Like stupid stuff, but I was a zombie. And so I had this realization that I wasn't going to do anything worth anything if I didn't have good people. And that's when I started meeting and hiring, and just over the years have had some amazing people that have believed in me. They've taken a lot less money than they were worth at the time, and they've believed in what we were doing. And that is when we grew it to be a business, is what I think of it. And then all the while, I had started out by managing a catering company when I moved back to Gainesville, and I had this desire to, I called it, change the way that the world eats. I think that I had this deep belief in health and fitness, but so much of that was nutrition, and I wanted to help people eat better, and really there wasn't too many options for that. It was like people either bought groceries and cooked at home, or they went out to eat, and it was skewing a lot more towards the latter. And people were just struggling, and they were asking me how I can help. So I studied up on nutrition, and then I started cooking people meals out of my house, and like just trying to figure it out along the way. And eventually we kind of figured it out through some different iterations and partnered up with some good people, going back to relationships. Owner of Celebrations Catering in town, Leah. She helped me get Eat the 80s started, actually. We met on a Tuesday at the Starbucks on 13th, and we were delivering our first meals the following Monday. So we started business in 6 days. Website and our first 10 customers. 4 weeks in, we had 40 customers, and we said we're not gonna shut it down and figure it out. We're just keep pushing forward. And so we went through all of the mistakes, and finally we're 3 years into that now, and still figuring things out, but growing well. And
I'll tell you a really funny story, and you don't know this, but so last Christmas, my sister called and said, "What are we going to get my parents?"
I do know this. Yeah.
So, come from a fairly large family. My dad's 85, my mom's 81 or whatever. They had everything they ever wanted, right? I mean, they need nothing. So Teresa, brilliantly, my sister, says, we're going to get a gift certificate for Eat the 80s. What is Eat the 80s first? And next I said, that's the dumbest thing I've ever heard. So, about $1,000 into this thing, because everybody just put, all the family members just putting in whatever they can. So we get this huge gift certificate.
Oh yeah,
Like way beyond, what if they don't like it kind of concept. And Teresa's like, trust me, they'll like it. And they've been back several. They went through their $1,000 or whatever, and they've been back. So anyways, it is a great product, and my parents love it.
Thank
they
you.
live by it.
Thank
and,
you.
Maybe that's why they're so old. But anyways, it's a funny story.
Yeah.
I really truly thought it was the dumbest idea on the planet. But I was like, what do you get your parents who are as old as they are and have everything that they have ever could ever want? But anyway, so Eat the 80s is a great, and it's still thriving and going.
Yeah.
And
in fact, we're in a really exciting time right now. And so for the last 3 years, we've been serving just the greater Gainesville area. Have built it very well. We've got a great team. We've got about 24 employees over there, and we've realized that 24, we're about 22, and we've grown it to the point, and we were branching out a lot. And this is, again, I think just part of every entrepreneur's struggle, is that you want to serve everyone in every way. And so we got to the point where we realized we had to dial it in and do what we do best. And to do that, we wanted to expand our distribution. And so right now we're actually in the middle of testing for a shipping model and serving other areas, essentially. So, which, I mean, food is a very volatile product. It's hard, but it's definitely worth it. And so our first boxes actually just went out today. So it's pretty exciting. Yeah.
That's great.
Yeah.
So Eat the 80s is going, B3 is going.
Yep.
And you've been doing Eat the 80s now for 3 years?
3 years, yeah.
Okay. And so in the interim, what happens next?
Wow, a lot. So let's see, what came first? So probably this show, I think, came first. So all the while I've had this vision to help 1 million people. I don't know where I got 1 million, but I woke up one night and I was like, I got to help 1 million people. And it was to be the happiest and healthiest versions of themselves. And so I was like, there's not 1 million people in Gainesville, so I got to find a way to find more people. And so I started reaching out to national publications, started writing for them, started doing some pieces and some ghostwriting and stuff like that. And I got picked up by Men's Health Shape Magazine about 3 or 4 years ago. I was listed as one of the top 50 hottest trainers in America by Shape Magazine. Really cheesy, but a year later, a casting company picked it up, and they said, we are really interested in you for a show. 8 months of casting later, I'm in LA shooting the pilot, and a year later, we're launching our first season on what's now the fastest growing cable network in America. So yeah,
So tell us a little bit more
Yeah.
about that, because it's not sexy in the sense that it's a product per se, but it is a pretty cool show. So
Yeah.
tell us what the show's about.
Yeah, so it's a reality TV show. I'm embarrassed every time I say it, but so I'm the host and the trainer on the show, and I get the privilege of working with 6 couples who are getting married. So myself and my female co-host, she works with the 6 females, I work with the 6 males, and we help them get in shape before their wedding and lose weight. And it's what I really liked about it, because at that point I didn't need the show, which was, I think, part of the reason I got it, is because I was just being myself and I wasn't trying too hard. But I was very particular because I talked to a lot of people in the industry. I had some friends a friend that was an agent out there, and he said, you got to be careful. He said it's a crazy industry and you don't know how it's going to look in the end. But at the end of the day, it was a very positive producer, a very positive network, and they just wanted it to be like inspiring, which anyone that knows me like that's what I'm about. And I didn't want to be the next like Biggest Loser trainer where I'm just like screaming at people and like beating them down. I didn't want to do that. And so yeah, it's a cool concept. They're both of them are generally overweight, and so we help them out, help them establish some healthy habits. And the cool thing is that it's not a competition, and so they don't even know the other couples really exist. Right. They know they're out there, but so they're just trying to do it for themselves. And we're actually in the middle of filming season 2 right now, and so obviously I'm here. So they're doing it on their own, which is the coolest part about the show, is that they don't have like a private chef and like a workout like ranch that they're staying at and they're forced to eat a certain number of calories or whatever. It's like they're figuring it out on their own. And so it's like real life struggles of losing weight and developing those. So that's what I really liked about it.
So the show starts.
Yeah.
I mean, they get their stuff.
Yeah.
Kind of inspired.
Mm-hmm.
And then you go away for a while?
Yeah. I go away. Like right now, I've been home for a few weeks, and I go back out there for a little bit.
It's a 90-day program.
It's 90 days in total, yeah.
Okay.
Mm-hmm. So yeah, we just get them started. We get them on the plan, and I mean, I call them, I text them, and we make sure that they're accountable, and they're all wearing like Fitbits and everything. Right. So yeah, I give them a hard time on those, but yeah, no, it's real life struggles. And so what I liked when I saw the first season was that they didn't like overplay the drum. It was like, this is really what people go through, and like this is their real story. And so yeah, and that's
what a great
yeah.
All this, that's great. Where do you think something like that will lead you?
Well, it's already led me to my next project, which I'm already working on. That's another. Yeah, most of it. Yeah. No, so about a year ago, I got connected with some people in the fitness industry, and I started consulting and coaching other business and gym owners on just really, it started with leadership and culture. It was like we got recognized by a few like national publications on like building a great gym community. And I was like flattered by that, first of all, but then realizes that as I was traveling more for business, it was like that didn't exist a lot of places. And so I started consulting, and then that led more into the passion for learning business systems. And I was actually out in Denver last week, and we're working on, I don't want to roll it out too much, but sort of a franchise model for the fitness industry. Yeah. So it's a little different than what's out there right now, but it's kind of the direction of where the industry's going. And so it's again just another way to help more people be happier and healthier.
So let's talk about that a little bit, because I think that dials into some of the things that I think are really important to companies. And you were talking about culture, and you talked earlier about hiring great people. With your fitness, with the gym side of things, you realized that the company was going to survive by people that really fit your model of commitment to it and so forth. So tell us a little bit about how you place a value on that for your companies that you work with, and how are you going to translate that to the companies, the other gyms, for instance. So you're going to take this model out to other gyms to say, here's how you really build a culture. Is it a culture of the participant, or is it a culture of the people who work within the gym? Let's dissect that first.
Let's dissect that. So what came first, the chicken or the egg? So I think that I do. I don't want to be. I think that it does start at the top. I think it starts with good leadership, and then also bringing on people that believe in that. But I think more than just like good leadership, it's just clear, and it's knowing what the values are of the company, and then true. Everyone says like hire by it, but it's become more and more about everything that we talk about. Like literally in our weekly meetings, we're talking about these certain things, and then we simplified what we believed in, and to the point to where it's ingrained in everyone, and like even our members know what our core values are. And I think that it attracts when you put it out there, it attracts the people that it should attract. And what I mean by that is there's oftentimes people that slip through the cracks and they get found out pretty quick, and almost like they don't quite make it, both employees and members. And so I think that it's a really, really hard thing to do, which is why I was actually against it for so long. A lot of people had talked to me about this for years, and I was like, you can't recreate, like you can't duplicate culture, you can't duplicate people. But what I'm realizing is that you can duplicate systems and processes that put the right people in the best position to succeed, and that's what's not happening.
Right.
And so essentially what we're doing is we're building the playbook, which I think you're familiar with, of the best practices. Because now I'm coaching hundreds of gym owners across the country through masterminds and private coaching, and I'm seeing what people are doing really well and what they're not doing well. And I'm just building it all up, and we're putting it all together. And it's really interesting to see that it hasn't been figured out yet. But
now, have you translated that same kind of building blocks to like Eat the 80s employees as well?
Absolutely. Yeah, absolutely. And in the early, again, I would like to think that I was smarter than this, but in the early days, I made the same exact mistakes I made with the gym. I hired too fast, didn't really lay out a plan or a vision, and we just kind of threw it together and made the mistakes. Luckily, we figured them out quicker. But to this day, we had to hire and let go some key people in the business because they didn't fit with the culture. And so, unfortunately, that's the mistake. That's all on me. But we eventually figured it out. Yeah.
So you'd mentioned earlier about you had said had learned a lot of life lessons along the way. What are some of the low points and where you kind of feel like you were able to learn and kind of pivot from those experiences?
Yeah. Well, man, there's definitely the low points, and there was somewhere around year 2, year 3, it was the burnout point, and I was ready to just give up, and I was like, why the hell am I doing this? Like I was making no money for myself at the time. Like I was scraping by still, and that was one of the key lessons when I realized that I needed to ask for help. I realized that in like that first 2 to 3 year period, I never really asked anyone for any help at all. And it was just me being stubborn. And that was the first real lesson that I learned, was that no one out there, and it was when I started talking to people much smarter than me, and they said that I only got to where I am today because I surrounded myself with people that believed in me and the people that could help me get there. And they're like, just ask, and you'll be surprised. And I started asking, and then that's when, honestly, what I'd say my life changed. It was changed my mindset, changed our business, finally was profitable, and we had great people, and we were attracting more. That was absolutely the first one. The second one was merging what I first talked about is like my passion of finance and numbers, was that at the end of the day, a business has to know their numbers, and they have to live and die by them. You have to know them on a daily basis. And what I started doing around that same time was I started writing on, I got the big sticky Post-it, the big ones, the Post-it notes, and I had them at my house, and I was just writing our numbers every single day by hand, and I would just track it, and I would just watch it, and then I would put another one up, and I would track it, and I would watch it. And that was the time when I started realizing that I knew, like, now that I knew what was driving my business, I could actually change the right things, and I wasn't just spinning my wheels anymore. And then the later on, I came to realize more about myself, and this is where I think life lessons really get impactful, is when you know what your strengths are and what you do better than anyone else. And I realized that I was a person that was really good at getting things started. And so my mentality has been, since that point I figured that out, is never stop moving. And so I'm fueled by action, and I'm fueled by what we call the hustle sometimes. And but what I also realized was I'm not as good as some of the other things that I now hire for. And that was a really, really important realization that's catapulted anything that I've been involved with, is that I stop doing anything that I don't like doing or that I'm not good at, and I find someone else that can do it. And that's been life-changing for me. Yeah.
Where do you see yourself in 5 years from now?
Love that question. I love that question. So,
Because we're going to replay this.
I know. I never get it right too. What I said 10 years ago is definitely not happening. Oh.
Let me rephrase the question.
Yeah.
You talked about cheesy. That's kind of a cheesy question. Where do you want to lead yourself in 5 to 10 years? Where do you really see your company's structures being? Where do you see the organizationally? Are you going to grow what you have to be some? I don't want to put words in your mouth, but I see the motivational side of you, and I see, the TV show obviously is a characteristic that somebody else is believing in you.
Yeah.
And so, and I did a stint of that for 3 years myself around the world. We talked about doing the motivational speaking and so forth. Is that something that, structurally, where do you see your local fit with this national component?
Yeah, it's a really good question, and I think you know better than anyone that opportunities happen and things come up that you never know would even happen. So from a structural standpoint, it's really hard to say. I do know that I'm already living a better life than I could have dreamed 10 years ago, and so I'm so fulfilled with everything that I'm doing. Like, I can't imagine it gets better, but I know it will. Just in the sense that we just get to affect more people. And I know that in some way I'll be inspiring people, whether that's individuals or business owners who are then inspiring more. I do know that, I hate to put it this way, but my name will be known nationally in some way or another. I look up to a lot of people in the industry, and I'm really passionate about changing. It's very aspirational, but I truly want to change the culture of health in our country. And like everything I do, I kind of have that in the back of my mind, is like, how do I help people like improve their lives through health? I call it health and happiness, because that's really what it comes down to. And so I know that I'll still be working in that. I hopefully what we're working on right now pans out and is a huge step in that direction. Yeah, I don't know. I always say we're always going to call Gainesville home. We absolutely love it here. We've started. We own some properties in town, and we absolutely do love it here. And at the same time, I do envision this action driving me to be traveling the country, either speaking or working on this model, or growing Eat to 80. And I absolutely keep a vision of what I want to be at that time, but it gets more value-based and less like detail-based as I go on, if that makes sense. Is 10 years ago, I like tried to outline my career, and it's nowhere close. And now I try to think about like my ideal day and like what fuels me and like what do I want to do when I wake up. And
do you have a personality trait that you could build an organization that can set things up and tell you where to go?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Think so?
I think so. Yeah. I think so.
We had talked about, or you had talked about, inspired by.
Mm-hmm.
So I was joking the other day. I had a close personal friend crying on my shoulder, and I was like, God dang it, who do I turn to inspire me? Everybody's, looking to me to kind of carry them forward sometimes. So I'm always intrigued by when I have conversations with people like you. You're super dynamic, and you obviously
Thank you.
have a phenomenal future in front of you. Who inspires you? So who are some of those leaders? Who are those leaders that you kind of look to say those are aspirational kinds of traits that they have? I want to follow.
Yeah, on a local and practical level, I do have mentors in town,
I think that's important for people.
Oh, yeah, I won't gloss over that. So another one of my biggest turning points was the moment I hired a business coach. It was the moment I had a mentor. It was the moment I joined a mastermind. I'm still part of all three of those.
Okay.
And so I still have a business coach. I still have three mentors, and I still am in 2 masterminds.
Okay.
And so, like, I legitimately, like, I wish I had done it sooner. And I recommend every single entrepreneur to get around people that are also doing great things. It's I've heard it talked about as the rule of 33, rule of 33%. It's spend a third of your time with people that are well above you, and those are your mentors, the people that are kind of pulling you up, you admire to be, and then 33% of your time with people that are on your level, because those are the people you're going to go through life with and rise together with, and then a third of your time with people that are I hate saying below you, but in any sense. Yeah. And so I think it's a lot easier to focus on that last third, and it's so much harder to focus on the first third. And so I like have to get uncomfortable to find the first third and spend more time with them, and I'm still not even at a third. Yeah. But and on just like a personal level, I truly just strive to be a good person. In my early days, like I was trying to cut corners, and I got back to the point of like looking myself in the mirror, and I was like, this is not who I want to be. And at the end of the day, like I will outwork anyone. I will drive as hard as I possibly can. But what I don't want to do is I don't want to be that person who people like. I don't ever want to do it at the expense of other people, if that makes sense. And so a lot of my aspirations and a lot of my career, like where I'm at today, I think are more of a product of being a good person and truly treating people right and listening to people than they are of any sort of like business savvy or doing the right things. Because I honestly made a lot of stupid business mistakes, but fortunately I had people around me that trusted me and that recognized that I was trying to do the right thing. And that is truly what I aspire to.
So a lot of times funding.
Yeah.
So, I have no idea if you had a blank checkbook, could you grow the 80s faster, or is it just a limitation of? Because a lot of people have products and services that they want to monitor.
Yeah.
So you have the fitness gym, which is obviously in a competitive environment, competitive to the point that local governments actually and universities give it away for free.
Yeah.
Right? So that's extremely competitive.
Oh, yeah.
Not to mention the competitive side of the independent market. But now you also have this, the meal service, which doesn't take long to turn on the TV to see other meal
Highly
services.
competitive.
Highly competitive. And then you see this whole incredible distribution network being fueled by Uber Eats and also
Amazon,
Amazon and so forth. In fact, I have a lot of retail space. 10 years ago, I just went to a seminar. 10 years ago, restaurants consumed 10% of the retail space. Today, they consume 20% of the retail space, which you would think would be kind of the opposite.
The opposite,
right?
yeah.
But a lot of the restaurants are actually using these direct delivery services, right? So you can just
Mhm.
call up, you order
Yep.
it gets delivered to your doorstep. So they're
Mhm.
using it as distribution networks
Right.
more than anything else,
Mhm.
as in fueling their growth.
Mhm.
So it's a very interesting concept. So back to
Yeah.
funding, because a lot of startups, and I've been there myself,
Mhm.
I know the value of having great financing and then no financing,
Right.
and the struggles that it brings to the marketing efforts of a product. Let's talk about
Mhm.
E80. So
Yeah.
where does that sit in terms of where are you getting funding? How are you in need of funding? How are you going to grow that business model?
Yeah, that's a really good question because we're in the middle of it right now. And the short answer is yes, it could be grown faster. Absolutely. A check would make it grow faster.
Would or wouldn't?
Would.
Would. Okay.
Yes. I absolutely do believe that. And I see that value in a lot of industries. We're still both privately owned, or just 100% owned. And we haven't taken it yet. And we've have had offers and from some good people. And what I always went back to was, why would I do it or why would I not do it? And so to this point, the answer had never been good enough as to why I would take the money. That is literally all it came down to. I Depending on where it goes, and I say that very carefully, is that we do have a few different options right now. It may become a necessity to where we do have to go into larger funding channels, but it's not necessary. And I think if we had it from day one, I would worry about where we would be at today. And so I do business coaching more on the gym side, but I think it applies to so many businesses, is that one of the scariest positions you can be is in the red with a date at the end saying this is where we're done if we don't figure it out. I think in some ways that's good because it puts pressure on you, but at the end of the day, you could be one step from breakthrough, but if the funding dries up, it's game over. And so we have believed a little bit more in the conservative side of building a profitable, sustainable business no matter what. And then if the time comes to where we need it for growth, we can then make that decision. But we've never relied on it. And I think that's been a big, big strength in where we're at today. And the reason why we can make the decisions that we are making and try different things. But again, I mean, I'm very, I would call it fiscally conservative and frugal. And so I would encourage even those entrepreneurs that do have that check, is that it's a lot easier to spend money that isn't earned than to spend money that's earned. It feels different. And so I think if I had more money, I would spend a lot more on things that I did not need. But it forces us to have to ask the questions and to pay attention to our balance sheets and pay attention to our numbers more than if we were just running over, bursting at the seams with money. So
let me ask you.
Yeah.
We're going to turn it over to the audience here in just a second. Let me ask you to dial back for a second.
Mm-hmm.
So you started out with an apology to your father.
Mom and Dad, yeah. Sorry.
They're a little more proud of you today than they were back then?
Very much so. Yeah. To this day, I think I was, may have been our 5th or 6th anniversary of B3, and they came up for it, and I thanked them. And I don't cry often, but I cried giving that talk, and it was just thanking, because it was after that point to where I call it we broke through, and I realized how much so many people had been on my side and rooting for me all along, and I kind of took it for granted to that point. And it was at that moment where I thanked them for just allowing me to do everything that I could do, and they never put the pressure on, because obviously I went to UF. I'm reasonably intelligent. I mean, I'm not a genius, but I could have done other things, and they could have pushed me in that direction. And they allowed me to figure it out on my own. And they're incredibly, incredibly proud of where I'm at. So thank you, Mom.
Yeah, no, that's awesome. I knew the answer.
Yeah, thank you.
So we're going to open it up to some questions. Who wants to go first? Yep. Okay.
So what are the things that you had mentioned was just the fact about your business coaching and
Yeah.
mastermind, and how that definitely was a shift in propelling you forward. Can you identify or speak to some of the things or aspects that the business coach pointed out to you that helped propel you forward?
Absolutely. First one is accountability. So when you are, especially a sole owner without partners or without a board, it's very easy to lie to yourself. And I lied to myself a lot about how we were doing and but when I had to answer to someone, whether it was a mastermind or a business coach, and I had to say, these are our numbers, it forced me to just work harder and pay more attention to the right things. And so if I said I was going to do this by this date, and I had to look someone in the eyes and say I did it or I didn't do it, and then explain it, that was enough for me to actually do the things that I knew I needed to do anyway. The second thing was it helped me focus on the right things. So it's so easy to be attracted to the next shiny thing, especially in today's world. Everything moves so fast, and there's always a new tactic or a new marketing strategy or a new social media channel, and it's so easy to think that that is the thing that you really need, or that's the difference between breaking through or not. But it forced me to just ignore all that and focus on key business indicators, performance indicators that were driving our business. And that's all we paid attention to. And he's like, no, I don't even want to hear about the things that you're doing over here. And that's fun, whatever. But if you don't do these numbers, if you don't get on the phone this many times, you won't have a business. So all that fun stuff doesn't matter. And so it helped me understand what drove my business. So I learned exactly how many people needed to call, or how many people I needed to call to get how many appointments, to get this many conversions, and then this many conversions turned into this many dollars over a lifetime, over a year, whatever it was. And so I never thought about it that way. And that is something that crosses over every business. Every business has a few numbers that drive them. And it forces you to pay attention to them. It also, being lonely at the top, on the same thing, it helps to just talk to people. And so my first mastermind, I literally used it as a therapy session. It was during some of the hardest times I was having in business. And it was just nice to know I wasn't the only one that struggled through those same things. Employee issues and whatever, financial issue, and whatever it is. It's I realized that other people were making these mistakes. And just by hearing it, it helped me get through them mentally, which I think is the first struggle in getting through any of those challenges, just mentally getting over it. And those are really the two or three biggest. Yeah. Does that answer your question? Awesome. Mm-hmm.
Yep.
Yeah. Yeah. Uh-huh. Yeah. I think that's a phenomenal question, because I am actually a strong believer in quality over quantity, which I was not in the early days. I just thought I could outwork everyone. I was I could grind harder than anyone. And on monotonous tasks, I think that was true about me. But at a deep level, you just can't do it. You only have a certain amount of mental energy to commit to certain things. And so, I was easily, and I don't say this, I was easily working over 100 hours a week, easily, multi-weeks on end, because I was, so my schedule when I started was this. I'd wake up early, and I would manage a catering company for a 40 to 50 hour work week. I would, after that, in the evenings, I would run my fitness classes and I would do my training, and then I would go and I would bartend and I would work the door at Gator City. And then I would sleep for a couple hours and I would do it again at 6 a.m. Yeah, and that was every day, every week, and which is why I burnt out and I was a mess. I was a zombie. But now, I mean, every day, every week looks different. For the last week and a half, I've been completely off the grid in Colorado, and I didn't even have text messages. But today, I worked for since 6 a.m. and I'm going to work after this. And so every day looks very different. I don't often I like what I do, and so sometimes it's hard to remember what's work and what's not. So I don't really know how much I work today, but I think it's going to continue to get less and less the more I realize what I'm really good at, and the more people I surround myself with. And it's cheesy, but some of our biggest breakthroughs are when I have more time to just think and process things. When I keep myself busy is generally when we just kind of, as businesses, we just kind of get in the hole. I don't know if there's any connection there, but I've started to notice that. So, yeah.
I will tell you this, that if you can ever get to the level where you do not realize how much you're working,
Mm-hmm.
and you're loving what you're doing, that is the ultimate.
Mm-hmm.
And when you can make things happen for you or your company, instead of feeling like you really truly know I work 40 hours this week because I came in at 8 a.m. and
Mm-hmm.
I'm leaving at 5 or whatever it is, whatever that structure is,
Mm-hmm.
that is an ultimate
Mm-hmm.
experience in life. And this is really about an interview with Chris, but I will tell you, I lived that myself. And Tori knows, works with my company. I quote, work all the time.
Mhm.
And a lot of people, how in the world can you do what you do? Because I have so many projects going
Mhm.
on at all the time. But to me, there's nothing work related
Mhm.
about it. Nothing. It's awesome. And so, from an inspirational, perspective, that's where you want to be.
Mhm.
And it really is exciting to hear that being done, again and again. And as life moves forward, you'll learn, it won't take you long.
Mhm.
And when you think about life in that concept, and the old saying, if you do what you love,
Mhm.
you'll never work a day of your life kind of thing, it's really true. It really is true. So you can put all the slogans on it you
Mhm.
want, but that is really a cool way to kind of
Mhm.
put it in perspective that you really don't know, but it is a very good question.
Yeah, absolutely.
What else? Yeah.
Hey, hey, how you doing? Yeah. Yep. Yeah. hmm Yeah, absolutely. So I just, part of my trip to Denver was actually meeting with some of the people that are also on this project. And so I've thought a lot about it recently. And for lack of a better terms, I envision there's room for two systems in this country. I envision there's room for a system where we fix broken people, and I envision a system to where we keep people healthy. And both of them can function together at the same time. However, in this country, unlike a lot of other countries, we really only have one system working really well. And so my vision is to help drive and develop a system that keeps people healthier so they don't break as often. And that is really what it's really about. And so, and I don't mean that just on I mean that globally as humans. So when you are exercising, when you are eating well, you have more energy, you're happier, you have less you'll generally have less mental health issues. There's so many connections across the way our bodies work with what we do on a daily basis. And I want to be a part of empowering people to learn that they can take care of themselves and self-manage themselves, and they don't, and we're always going to break. At some point, things are going to happen. We're going to break. I mean, I'm fortunate to this day. I don't have some rare condition that's caused me to be hospitalized for 2 years or something. I'm very grateful for that. And if something happened where my life was on the line, or I broke my leg 2 years ago, I'm going to go to the other program, if you will. But I think that there's a place for both, and I want to help drive that because I think that's what a lot of people deserve.
How do you think we change that culture? Because to me, that's more cultural driven.
Yeah. Uh-huh.
So how do we?
Yeah, so it's already happening, first of all, which I'm no visionary. Like, I've just been in the industry and I've worked with a lot of people. So first off, it starts with nutrition. And
I feel like I need to tell you what I'm eating tonight.
no, I was like, I paused there for a second because
Grouper, asparagus.
I paused there for a second specifically for that reason because, God, I'm not the person who's like, you have to eat this and only this and like only boiled chicken or whatever. Like, that's a terrible way to live. Like, in fact, like, I haven't even said it, but the behind the name of Eat the 80 was that we believe in a lifestyle approach to this. And then if you eat well and you make healthy decisions 80% of the time, you literally don't have to worry and feel guilty about the other 20%. And like, that is how I live personally. Like, that's how I encourage people to live. But most people, it's kind of flipped the other way around. And so it's a guiding process. So I forgot where I was going with that. But
Changing the culture.
oh, changing the culture. Yeah. So I think that first of all, we kind of found ourselves at the bottom of the hole somewhere in the last decade, and we didn't realize that it's like you're the last person to figure out you had a problem. That's what America is right now. It's like we're just figuring out like, oh wow, we have a problem, but it's been like now like 1.5 to 2 generations, and so it's going to be hard to get out of the hole that we've like dug ourselves into. But people are starting to figure out how, and it's literally by moving your body and eating real food, and that's literally all it is. And you can package that in so many different ways. And that's what we do with our different businesses. We package it up to make it easier for people so you enjoy it. But like, I'm not saying that what we do is like the only way to do it. I think it's a way that works for people. And then I think that it has to, it's coming also with this generation, which I'm actually really excited about. A lot of the people that I was on the trip with were young physical therapists. They were young doctors. And they were young mental health counselors, and they're all realizing that like we need to do something, and like they want to be the revolutionaries, and that's happening now. And I think that what I love about this generation is that they care more about like what happens in the world than a lot of times for themselves. And I think that's amazing, because I think that's what the health revolution is going to take, is going to be some people that are going to have to like struggle for a while, because it's a lot easier to work in the system than it is to like redefine your path. And so part of what I'm doing is I'm trying to create that path for people that are much smarter, well-intentioned, to be able to follow it and like be in a model that they can succeed financially. They can pay off their $250,000 in medical school debt and like all that. And so like that's part of like what we're working on. And I think that's going to be years and probably a lifelong journey for me. But yeah.
I just want. No, I'm kidding.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Yeah. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Mm. Yeah, absolutely. I can answer both of those. So the first one is probably the simplest answer that I think a lot of people need to hear. And I got really uncomfortable, and I said that I could not go to sleep at night without talking to 10 people about what I was doing. And that was my rule every single day. I had to talk to at least 10 people about what I was working on. If I didn't do that, I would have to go out to Publix or whatever and go talk to 10 strangers to do it. And I swear to God, I did it. I didn't do it every day, but I would go to networking events. I would talk to my friends. I would say, how can we get more people in here? And then I it was before like social media. And honestly, I think that's actually become a little bit of a crutch for people, because for me, part of what I think drew people to what I was doing was my passion for it, and like they saw it. And so when I was face to face with someone, they like wanted to give me a chance and help me out. And so like I just got in front of people, and every person that would listen, basically. That was it. Second question was on one more time. Oh, thank you. Yeah. No, great question. So, so when you're not in a position to hire, first, there's probably a lot of things that you can systemize that you've been too stubborn to systemize. And what I mean by that is we live in an amazing age of technology to where we can make a process out of something. And so the way I now look at everything is this something that we can set up and forget about it? That's the first question. And it has to also fit like the people. Like you can't automate human interaction, and so it has to fit that criteria too. But if you can, do it. And what's even better about that is when you start writing down exactly what a process is, you start to figure out like what's working and what's not working. And so by writing the process, you're almost like fixing the process in itself. The second reason why that's awesome is because when you are ready to hire, you have now exactly what you want and exactly how things work, and how you want things done. That is really that I think is the root of the question of I can't afford to hire, is that when I hire someone as the leader, I'm wasting so much time having them figure it out because I didn't figure it out before I hired them. So I think the question really becomes, if I were to hire someone, a rock star, like someone who really believes in what we do and they're very talented, would they bring at least the amount of value to the company to what they're being paid? And as we've started systemizing things and we've started, essentially you're giving someone a way to succeed. You're giving them a path to success as opposed to trial by fire. I just wrote an article on this actually, and it was about like this idea that everyone has to make all the mistakes when they first start because you are too lazy to set up the training practices and set up everything that they need to do. And so what happens is if you are prepared when you hired someone, yeah, you're probably making a stretch before you're ready. And I actually do believe in that. And it goes both ways. So I tell so many key people that I hire, I say that, look, I think you're worth more than what I'm going to be paying you today. But I also think you're going to bring more value than I think you can bring today. I think you're going to bring that. And so we kind of trust each other a little bit in that first few months or year. And what it is they believe that at the end of the day we're building something great, and they believe that I honestly will like recognize their value and eventually take care of whatever the number is. And they are trusting that they are more talented than I believe that they are. And often, almost entirely now, that's been the case for us. And so, God, that was a terrible long answer to that. But so definitely automate, systematize everything. And then if you can't afford to hire like a full-time person, there are so many options out there. Like my first graphic design, like we still use contract labor all the time. Like we outsource certain things that we can't yet justify having like a really talented person to do it, but we still want a really talented person to do it. And so with like today's world of like crowd sharing talent and all, like there's amazing people out there that probably want a side hustle. Like we've traded or paid people to like design a t-shirt or to, I don't know, write up a marketing campaign or whatever it may be. So there's people out there that will do it. And yeah, so does that answer your question? Take a chance on people is the best advice that I will give you. Is be clear about what you are doing and what you want, and then take a chance. And you'll occasionally be burned, but you will come out on top more than that.
You don't Reader's Digest this?
Yeah, absolutely.
So I need the Reader's Digest version to the answer to this.
I love it. What's up, Julie?
So I've actually been wondering this for a while.
Mhm.
I'm a member of the Andy,
Mhm.
and I've been kind of watching, over the past year that I've been a member, looking at services that you guys offer.
Mhm.
I think this is a question every business comes up with when they're building out a product.
Mhm.
There are so many decisions to make. There's so many forks in the road on the services you can offer
Mhm.
and the aspects of that product. How do you guide those decisions to make sure you're offering the right product for the right people?
I'll give the short answer. So, the easy answer is know the customer that you want to serve, not necessarily the customer that you're currently serving, but know the customer you want to serve, and then try. Yeah, that's literally our method. Is we try to know everything about, we like visualize, and we even have, we call them personas. So we're like, this is the person that we want, even down to their characteristics, their personality, whatever they do for hobbies. And then we just try things, and we're like, I think this person that we're visualizing, this Jane or this Julia, I think Julia would love this. And we don't know, but we asked Julia, and we're like, hey Julia, would you like this? And maybe she says yes, maybe she no. We try it, and like whatever. Like, it's a bunch of small bets. It's actually a good book. It's like you just make these like little bets, but if you're making the bets for the wrong person, that's where I think people get into trouble. Yeah. Everybody. Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
Great question.
It's a phenomenal question. Yeah. Yeah.
I have to say that you've brought more good, solid, visionary kind of answers and descriptions on how to harness some of the. And the last question is a great example of are you going to be everything to everyone, or are you going to find that niche? And truthfully, a lot of great companies are fitting niches, right? And so I'm going to give you one little coaching advice. I'd change your last name if you're really going to be a movie star.
Funny story, I actually considered it. I swear to God, and a lot of my close friends shot me down. I seriously, thank you though. No. It was actually going to be Chris Cruz. Chris Cruz. That's why. They laughed the same way. So yeah, that wasn't my idea, but yeah.
But you've given a lot of inspiration, a lot of great feedback, a lot of good stories, and it's been a thrill to meet you here today. We're going to have another startup talk next month as well. We've got another great visitor already teed up. You'll have to come back and see who that is. We've been trying to get Chris here for some time, and we know about your work schedule and your filming and so forth. So it's really, really great to have you here. Also want to thank Infinite Energy for their sponsorship. This wouldn't happen without them. And also all the folks who are making it happen. You had something to say? Yes, SCAD Media as well, and for putting together the production and making sure it gets online. Thank you very much for that. So we will see you all here. I'm sure Chris will stick around.
Absolutely, yeah.
And again, thank you all for coming out today.
Thank you. Thank you.